Thank you, Madam Chair. And welcome, Scott. Thank you for your work in Fairfield. As you will see, you've got quite a fan club with the entire
Making
Fairfield,
me a bit nervous.
entire Fairfield delegation. So we are, as a delegation, fully in support of the great work you do, but also this important bill. You talked about access and equity. I think we're very proud that you represent Fairfield's library, but also you cite that you're a resident of Seymour. And I know your background was at Albany in their unique kind of a citywide library system. Can you talk about how this bill and the cost differential impacts access and equity for all of our libraries, not just suburbs or rural areas or college research university libraries, but also including our city? Talk a little bit about how this cost differential affects equity and access.
Well, you know, for many libraries, it is always a question when we get our budgets, it's always a question, what are we going to sacrifice to continue these services? And ebooks and the cost of ebooks, we were lucky enough in Fairfield to ask for additional funds last year, and we got them solely to purchase more ebooks. But in other communities, that is not the case. And when we talk about accessibility, my library does not have a sidewalk that leads to it in Seymour. So in other words, when my sons want to go to the library when it is open, they don't have a safe passageway there. It got my son to listen to more audiobooks. They can't ride their bikes there. There's no structure, there's no infrastructure. So really the library is physically closed to them. So in order for them to use the library and to get books, they're using the ebook collection there. But then again, this is a library with a small budget. I look at the budget every year, a small budget that doesn't have the money to purchase as many books as other municipalities do and doesn't have the hours to be open to everyone. So it comes down to our ebook collections provide accessibility by being there 24/7. So mom works 45 minutes north of Seymour. Dad works a half an hour south of Seymour. My sons can't ride their bikes just yet to that library, but if they need a book, if they want an audiobook to listen to, they can go on the computer and they can do it. But that collection is somewhat limited. So there's the accessibility there. I have a non-reader. My 14-year-old is not a reader. I know it breaks my heart a little. However, he'll listen to audiobooks. So again, here's a service that's provided, and we don't have CD players in the house. We might somewhere buried. But here's the ability for my 14-year-old to download a book and listen to it and give them the opportunity. Or we sit in the car on a family trip and we all listen to that audiobook together, creating that family bond. That's what these collections provide. And it's powerful and it's strong and it's part of our mission.
The equity, and thank you for sharing that perspective. Would you agree that it impacts all of our libraries, but do you believe that it disproportionately impacts greater a lot of our other communities, from rural communities to our urban communities? That inequity is disproportionate, and it's driven by this cost, which does not vary. And it does not vary whether you're a city, rural, or a suburb. That's what's remarkable, is that disparity that exists is even more exacerbated and greatly more disparate in different communities.
Absolutely. In Albany, there was a constant discussion of how much more can we cut from our physical book budget so we can purchase more ebooks. And in urban communities where there's such a digital divide, and not just a digital divide in terms of connectivity, but also digital literacy, where individuals may have a phone, but they don't know how to download the app or work the app to download the book. It's really a struggle in those communities. And for rural libraries, look at our budgets for our rural libraries and our smaller libraries. The collection development budget it's not sustainable to pay these prices for leases, nor is it easy to discuss with your local alderman or selectman about why you're spending money on books that you're unable to keep in your building that will disappear after 28 borrows or 2 years. It leads to a really difficult conversation around budgets.
I'm going to pivot. My second point would be, I know that the Library Consortium Executive Director, Ms. Paul, could not stay. She submitted testimony. But it was a question I was reserving for her, and that is, you talked about contract law and the emphasis of the language of this bill that looks at contract law and being very cognizant and being very respectful of copyright protection and federal preemption. Talk a little bit more about your application of your contract negotiations through the consortium, through the publisher, and why this approach is a valid pathway.
You have to understand that we don't purchase these directly from the publisher. We use an aggregator. We use a third party, which provide an app and provide kind of the software that our patrons can use to access these books. But the price, no matter who the aggregator is, the price is the same. There is no, okay, well, if I can't purchase this book for this price here, I can go here and purchase it for less money. We don't have that opportunity. There is no there is not. Saying there's negotiation, there's not. There's a lack of negotiation. It is, this is the cost of the service that you're paying for, this is the cost of the material. Maybe you can do one option or the other, but for the most part, we really don't have the opportunity to negotiate, to have a conversation, to ask for, prices to be changed.
You're in a buyer-seller transaction in a contract arrangement, but you have no say whatsoever. You could not, I mentioned it earlier with the former president of the American Library Association, the fact that they were in the early stages of this 15 years ago, able to embargo or limit access to books, and there was no pathway. And let's fast forward to today. You talk about an alternative pathway, and we're talking about contract law here and the ability to be able to negotiate. But you can't go and say, I'm not going to buy from you, publisher. I will go buy 10 copies on Amazon.com, and to be able to share that, just as I could go buy any books or go any book sale, as we have so many in wonderful Fairfield, everybody should visit, and be able to loan it out. There is a restriction through your aggregator and through the contract agreement that you are restricted, but you have no say on pricing.
No, and early on when we first launched ebooks, that was really the discussion is, are we going to do this? Are we going to provide this service? Because we knew then that the pricing was unfair, and we hoped that would change as usage and the amount of money that we spend, as we kind of grew, what we thought would grow into a relationship, but the relationship really we were never able to establish a relationship because it was, okay, you're using this service, now you're stuck.
I think one of the important elements is library book checkouts still obviously dominate, but in our conversations, COVID created a new venue, a new kind of utilization to get books and knowledge and information. Your example of your 14-year-old is a great example, because without the opportunity of an audiobook, that young person would never enjoy and understand the opportunities to be able to learn and gain knowledge, and that's a shame. Can you cite a little bit the market increase of ebook utilization in your library system that kind of has continued post the spike in COVID, to make an understanding that your cost on ebooks and audiobooks will continue to increase because it is part of the demand, and it'll take an even bigger bite out of your operational budget, which, as the good chairwoman mentioned earlier of this committee, it's town taxpayer dollars that support our local libraries, as well as local philanthropy and our Friends of the Books Library Foundation do such a great job. But where does that increase in what you see in the trend, and how does that take an even bigger bite, not only today, but into the future?
It's currently in 2023, in the fiscal year 2023, it was 25% of our circulation, ebooks. It would grow much more than that if the wait lists weren't so long. So in other words, when I work the reference desk, I've had patrons come in and say, I have a hold for the ebook version of this, but I saw you had the physical version, so I came in. So we would grow. I mean, it will become probably half of our circulation at some point in time. Keep in mind also that CDs are no longer a viable format. So all of those audiobooks that we purchased for years and circulated for years, that format will disappear. The demand for that format will go away. And the only opportunities to borrow an audiobook from a library will be through digital. And that's at much higher cost than we're used to pay.
That's a scary thought for your budget. And it's a scary thought because my daughter lives in Brooklyn. There's a book, the latest movie with Leo DiCaprio, The Killer Moon. We went to the library. It's a 1 week wait to get the electronic book for her. In Brooklyn, for her, it is a 6-month wait. I hope we never get to that in our communities. And ultimately, if you're looking at that kind of rise in utilization with the cost disparity and the unfairness of the cost disparity that has existed without any solution, I worry about what your budget will become, and I worry about what other critical services libraries will have to cut. So thank you very much for speaking out. Thank you for your great work on behalf of the people of Fairfield and the surrounding area. And again, thank you.
Thank you. Representative